Before Michael Myers, before Leatherface, before Buffalo Bill, there was one man living quietly on a lonely farm in Wisconsin whose crime would change horror forever. His name was Ed Gein, but history remembers him as the Butcher of Plainfield. And this story, his story, isn't just about death or madness. It's about what happens when isolation, obsession, and repression twist the human mind into something unrecognizable. This isn't a movie. This is the real story that gave birth to modern horror. Ed Gein was born in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He grew up on a desolate farm in a tiny town called Plainfield, population barely 700. His father, Ed Gein, was an alcoholic who couldn't keep a job, but the real authority in that house was his mother, Augusta. Augusta was fanatically religious. She told her sons the world was full of sin, and women especially were agents of the devil. Her sermons weren't about love or grace, they were about punishment, sin, and eternal life. She kept Ed completely isolated, no friends, no laughter, no contact with other people. Neighbors described Ed as polite but strange. He was shy, quiet, and completely devoted to his mother. He worshipped her, but he also feared her. That's how monsters are made, not born but shaped, slowly, quietly by fear. In 1940, Ed's father died. 4 years later, his brother Henry died mysteriously during a fire near their property. When police arrived, Henry's body had strange bruises on his head, but no one investigated further. Then came the final blow. In 1945, Augusta, the only woman Ed ever loved or feared, died of a stroke. And with her death, Ed's sanity died too. He sealed her room off completely untouched, like a shrine. The rest of the house decayed into filth. He slept near the kitchen, surrounded by trash, old magazines, and silence. To the townspeople, he seemed lonely but harmless. He did handyman jobs, babysat neighborhood kids, but behind those quiet eyes, his mind was unraveling. He began reading about cannibals, anatomy, and Nazi experiments. And somewhere in his delusion, he started believing he could bring his mother back. In 1947, Ed Gein started visiting cemeteries late at night. He dug up recently buried women, ones who resembled his mother. He wasn't robbing for valuables, he was looking for pieces of them. Police later confirmed that Gein exhumed at least 9 graves. He would take body parts home, make marks from their faces, and even craft items from their skin. But soon, the graves weren't enough. On December 8, 1954, tavern owner Mary Hogan vanished. Blood was found in her bar, but her body was gone. Then on November 16, 1957, hardware store owner Bernice Wooden disappeared. The last receipt in her register made out to Ed Gein. Officers drove out to his farm that evening and walked straight into a nightmare. In the shed, hanging upside down, was the body of Bernice Wooden, decapitated and gutted like a deer. Inside the house, officers found what they first thought were hunting trophies, but then the truth came into focus. They found bowls made from skulls, a belt made from nipples, a lampshade made of human skin, chairs upholstered in flesh, and perhaps the most disturbing, a woman's suit sewn from human skin, which Ed admitted to wearing. He said it made him feel closer to his mother. It wasn't just murder. It was a man's desperate, delusional attempt to resurrect the only person he ever loved, and in doing so, he became something less human. Police arrest Gein that night. He confessed calmly, almost politely, to the murders and grave robbing. He told investigators he often came to his senses mid-dig and sometimes left empty-handed, racked with guilt. Doctors diagnosed him with schizophrenia and severe psychosis. He was declared insane and sent to Central State Hospital. There he remained quiet, cooperative, and even helpful. He tended the garden, read books, and occasionally joked with staff. But he never spoke about his mother. In 1968, he was tried for the murder of Bernice Worden, found guilty, but not guilty by reason of insanity. He spent the rest of his life in institutions, dying in 1984 from cancer at age 77. Even his grave didn't rest peacefully. Fans and vandals chipped away at his tombstone, stealing pieces as souvenirs. Hollywood couldn't resist. In 1959, writer Robert Bloch turned Gein's story into Psycho. Then Hitchcock's film gave us Norman Bates, the boy who couldn't escape his mother's voice. In 1974, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre brought us Leatherface, the killer who wore human skin. And in 1991, The Silence of the Lambs gave us Buffalo Bill, a man obsessed with transformation cut from the same twisted fabric as Gein. One lonely man on a Wisconsin farm became the blueprint for cinematic terror. Ed Gein's story isn't just about horror or blood. It's about what happens when control, isolation, and repression corrodes the human mind. When love turns into obsession, when faith becomes fanaticism, when loneliness becomes madness. So I'll leave you with this question. Do you think monsters like Ed Gein are born or made? Tell me in the comments below, because sometimes the scariest monsters aren't in the movies, they are in the mirror.